Hello everyone, my name is Jay Martin, and someone on the channel submitted a really good question. How the heck do you play Sweden? Not many people do. This is the answer. The build we're rocking here is 4 lifeguards, 5 regular infantry, 3 militia, and 7 shooter cav. There's also a 6-star general. You can do this a little bit differently if you want to bring a regular general, get rid of 2 of the militia, and bring line instead. And that gives you enough money for the chevron there. Maybe 2 of them. It's not really relevant. Put a chevron over here, maybe. You could also do the build like this, but I prefer the 3 militia one. That's just kind of what I'm going to demonstrate. So the idea is we have 9 line infantry. We're going to put them into 3 groups of 3 with the militia in front of them. And we're going to buy these in a very specific order so that, you know, one of the features of the newer Total Wars is you can rearrange the unit cards down here when you're in the game. In Napoleon, you can't. So let's get rid of everybody. We're going to want that dude. We're going to start with the militia. I'm going to buy these in a specific order. So we want a lifeguard of foot. This is going to be our left. So we want the guard unit on the extreme left wing. Then we go militia, foot, elite, foot. And then we go militia, line, infantry. And so that's going to be group 1. That's going to be group 2. That's going to be group 3. And then we have our mounted Jaegers. All right. And I'm just playing a game against the computer to show you how it works. Okay, so let's set this up. So I may have tweaked that setting a little too much. So we're going to go something like this. Here we go. Alright, those are 3 groups. We could have done that better. What is interesting about this build is it breaks a lot of my own rules. I generally don't use groups. I also generally don't bring the expensive general. I also generally don't bring this much cav. And we're going to start with most of our cav on the flank here. I do think it's important to keep some cav available in the center. And what we're going to do... Yeesh. Let's get these guys all moving. And we're just going to crash into the line. Now, once the initial move orders happen, you can clean this up a little bit. And what we're trying to accomplish is create dominance on the flanks with our shooter cav. And then another thing is obviously I have the militia in front to meet shield. After the first volley, we're going to turn our groups off and try to get all, 12 units just in a straight firing line. And another thing is generally you might hold your center unit back because against a human player there would be a bunch of light infantry right here. We're not really worrying about that. Let's just go. Can we run? How do you run? Does that run? Okay. Game is stuttering a little bit. Now, we have 7 cav here, and I just kind of arbitrarily put 3 and 3 on each flank. Against a human, you might go like 4 and 2 or something like that. You could also commit, based on what they're doing, your center cav. It's kind of what you're doing is up to you. So I forgot to tell these units to run again. At this point, we might watch out if... Okay, so this is kind of exactly how you want to draw it up. We might need to charge here. Shoot at him! Damn it! Can I turn the group off? So now that we've got general fighting going on, let's turn our groups off. And we're somewhere like that. This guy's melee fighting. These two are back there. And let's tell them to run. And that's kind of the plan, is you get your shooter cav on the flank to harass them. This game developed a little bit quicker than a multiplayer game probably would. And then just everybody goes in and shoots. In fact, this is kind of bad because you would want to give your shooter cav time to establish dominance on the flank first. So we can just chase those rifles. That's not a problem. Or no, you just melee them. You go back there and shoot. You go there. You go there. These lights. And the goal is to break a shooter cav or two into your opponent's rear. Kind of like this. Okay, that's done. That's done. And the weakness of this is we don't have light infantry to, you know, slow the game down, because that's the exact opposite of what we want. Like, what we want is to end this game very quickly. If anybody's a bit of a StarCraft fan, this would be the equivalent of like a 12 pool with Zerg. You know, you just want to end the game very, very quickly. And a lot of players can't handle this kind of aggression. Oh, somebody came back from running. There's only 21. That's probably fine. And the strength is this lets you get into a box, you know, with units firing at them from two angles very, very quickly. So the strength of this build is it lets you claim cav superiority very, very quickly, because they're probably going to have fewer than 7 or the 8 cav that you do. And once you do that, that gives you map control. And then your front line of infantry has 4 guard units and 3 militia to soak up bullets, which is really good enough to buy... Oh, fucking cat. Ah! Which is good enough to buy you time for your mounted units to really make a difference. And it's kind of that domino effect that I talk about a lot, that the first unit route, so now you're shooting 2 at 1. What you're really trying to accomplish here is get that first unit routed and then snowball that advantage. And your games wind up... Oh, this is kind of messy back here. Your games kind of wind up looking like this. I'm really bad at pressing the run command, apparently. And that's it. So that's how you play Sweden. So let's take a break real quick and then actually look at the replay. Okay, so this is what the opponent sees coming at them. Uh, your first priority as a Sweden player is you want to eliminate their cav and get that off the field very quickly. Again, that gives you map control. You will be able to have cav patrolling on their flanks. That causes them, they have to slow down, right? Because if their flankmost unit over here or over here has a bunch of shooter cav on its outside, that unit kind of has to stop and probably square. And then if you can get a unit behind them back here, you can obviously threaten the general and go for that if you want. It's cute. But that really limits the movement that the rest of their line can make. And that's sort of what makes the straight up walk up and shoot at you move with your line fairly safe, because it means that their lights can't kite very far. They can't retreat because there's cav in their rear, right? The real weakness to walking a bunch of line infantry up into 5 Prussian Fusiliers is the Fusiliers just kite you to death. But if you can break into their rear, they can't do that. This game is kind of a bad example because I rushed the infantry up too fast. Ideally, what you want to do is move your infantry a little slower, give your shooter cav on the flanks time to establish dominance, eliminate their cav, and starting to threaten their flanks. You probably get a better result. Another thing that, I don't know, obviously it's not relevant playing against CPU, but at this point in the game, if I see 2 cav over here, 2 cav over here, and all of their cav is committed, that's the point where I probably move my 7th cav unit around. And I didn't do that in the replay, so my bad or whatever. But this is, and this was poor for me here, but this is actually a pretty reasonable template of what this game looks like against an actual player. They'll send their cav out to try to counter yours, or at least attrition you a little bit. You get their cav off the field, you run up and shoot at them, and then about 90 seconds later is when your cav here start to work into the rear. And because you have so many guard units in your infantry component, they're at least going to attrition, right? Right? So there's 2 things you're trying to do here. If your infantry at least attrition, then if your cav get good position like that, then you're going to win the game. Right? It's basically impossible to win the game if you get into this kind of situation. Your infantry will attrition, or at least trade 1 for 1, but you've established so much dominance with your cav in their rear that you can easily chase down routers. You're getting chip damage with your shooter cav, and then your cav are now in a position where we can actually do melee charges. And this, again, look at this little chain route. Like that's what happens against human players too. All right, so the real advantage of this strategy is you just put so much aggression on their flanks at the beginning. You probably eliminate their cav. It means that the opponent doesn't have any real good maneuver options. They can't move anywhere because there's a bunch of fucking cav in the rear, right? And they can't really go forward either because you're at least going to trade 1-to-1 on the infantry thing. It completely strips the initiative from the opponent, assuming that you executed the initial attack properly, of course. I mean, if you run your cav into a bunch of squares, then that's on you. But the tools in this army build give you a lot of options to completely jump on and take the initiative away from your opponent. And these lead to really snowbally wins that just look horrible in hindsight. Like a good player who runs into this gets made to look like an absolute fool is kind of what happens. If the right conditions exist for this build to occur, you're going to look like a genius. Your opponent's going to look like an idiot. And that's just because it takes so much initiative away from any decision making your opponent wants to do. They can do absolutely nothing. They just kind of sit there and shoot back, and meanwhile you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cav units in the rear and their army is gone. Does this work on terrain maps? The answer, it depends. Probably not Galatia Ria. Maybe a 1v1 on, I don't know, pyramids maybe. Although heat factor kind of fucks the Swedish on pyramids. But any map that you have a lot of room to move around, this is good on. This probably isn't a 3v3 build. Maybe a 2v2 on grassy. You've got some room to move around. And obviously I'm playing poorly. I didn't notice that. But the strength of this is it strips your opponent's cav off the field very, very quickly and puts you in strategic points threatening the rear, which limits their movement and limits their ability to make decisions. In other words, you control the initiative. And that's kind of how you play Sweden. You want to be hyper aggressive and get all in on them. So thanks for watching. My name is Jay Martin. If you have any other interesting questions, like this was a great one, I thought. And I don't have very many videos like this. So again, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Hope you like the video. And I will catch you in the next one.